Hi everyone, it's Lou Collins for CraftStash. Today I want to show you 3 cards. Well, I'm using florals, but I'm not making them particularly feminine. So if you've got lots of floral stamps and dies, like the brand new Frida Kahlo 3 collection from CraftStash, then you'll notice you've got lots of flowers, but sometimes people come along who, yeah, they like their flowers, but they're not necessarily pinks, purples, really girly. So these are going to be suitable for anyone who isn't particularly feminine. These are going to be suitable for the teenage girls out there, and just so many different genres. So I hope you enjoy these. If you do, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Now let's get into the tutorials. So the main focus of this tutorial is going to be on this floral stamp set. You've got some fabulous geometric borders in here as well, but I'm going to be focusing on these elements. So if you've got any other floral stamps at home, they'll be perfect to work with these techniques, but you could also purchase this exclusively from CraftStash, and we'll make sure that's linked down below for you. Now for this one, you're going to need black cardstock, clear embossing powder, and don't worry, not all of these cards are going to be monochrome or black and greys. We are going to have some colour in there, but as I say, not particularly feminine. So the first thing I'm going to be doing today is creating a card base and a panel for the front from my black cardstock. This is my smooth stamping cardstock from CraftStash. So I've just trimmed the A4 sheet in half long ways, and I'm going to fold it this way so it's a top fold card. You can do this in your scoreboard, but because on my scoreboard I don't have the perfect increment to get this exactly halfway, I'm going to do it by hand and just burnish that down with my bone folder. There we go. I've got a really nice crease and a top fold card. And then the excess, so this was cut at 4 inches, and that left me with a slightly larger base there. And I'm going to use the 4-inch panel now as just to kind of create a mat for my card. I'm just going to mark with my pokey tool where I need to trim that, and I tend to use a pokey tool for marking rather than a pencil. This way I don't have to worry about erasing any marks, and it's quite subtle. I can still see it enough to put that in my trimmer, but I don't have anything, like I say, to get rid of later. So this will be fitting on my card base in a little while, and I'm going to work on this. This just now means that not only do we have dimension by matting and layering onto the card base later, but also if I make a mistake on here, it doesn't matter. It's only one sheet of cardstock rather than going directly onto my base. So I've got one of the stamps from this set onto an acrylic block, and rather than going in a stamping platform, I'm going onto a block so that I can move around and stamp quite quickly. I've got myself my Versamark ink. This is a clear embossing ink, so you're not really going to see much when I first start stamping this, but you will do once I add the embossing powder. So rather than going across the bottom here, I'm going to go upwards this way and stamp that to around about just over a third, but not quite a halfway up. And then I'm going to repeat that, but each time I'm going to twist my stamp. There may be a little bit of overlapping, hopefully not too much. And that's a little bit lower this time. And then this one, I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to make this one a little bit lower again, just so I've got a little bit of variation in the height. Now let's see if I can hold that up and show you. There you go. You can just see those lines on there absolutely beautifully. They fit together nicely. So now I'm going to use some clear embossing powder. I'm actually going to use the inside of my card base that we've already cut to capture that powder. And now you'll be able to really see the design. Isn't that just gorgeous? Now you could of course emboss this in white powder if you like that look, but I'm going for really very subtle today, quite a nice simple card. So I'm going to use my heat gun and just set this powder. And now you can see we've got a really sophisticated glossy floral outline just on the base of our card. To finish this card off nice and simply, I'm going to add one of the gold sentiments from the Frida Kahlo paper pack. These all pop out beautifully, so let's find one that I think suits. We've got them outlined in white. If I'm not sure on the white, I might make that background black. I love this one. You Are So Strong. So that would be absolutely perfect. Do you know what? I think the white actually works really nicely on there. So I think I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to use the Creative Craft Products black foam pads. These are the large ones, so I can cover a really big area at a time and just place my mat down onto my card base using these. If I was using a lighter colour base, then I would be using the white version instead, which is also available. Now, just to make this sentiment blend in a little bit, I'm going to go around the very edge with my black blending brush and just capture, so I'm stroking the ink from the outside in all the way along. If you get any on the gold foiling, that will rub right off because that will resist, and this will kind of give it almost a bit of a glow around there, so it looks like it's fading into the sentiment rather than a really bold strong white outline. Placing that in the middle of the card, but around about a third of the way down from the top, and there's our first floral but non-feminine card. For this next technique, I'm going to be getting a little bit more inky. I'm going to be working on a watercolor cardstock, and I've chosen some Distress Oxides in colours that suit my recipient. I'm just using my stamping platform here to smudge some of my ink into the top here because it's a resistant surface. I'm still going to be using the single acrylic block to stamp with because it is just so much easier to move around. So the three colours I'm putting on here, I'm aware that they will mix, and then I'm going to spritz these with water, and I want quite a bit of water here. Then I'm going to press my florals into, or my stamp into these and onto my cardstock. Now, I'm not going to get a perfect impression, but I am going to get the colours mixing, looking really beautiful. I'm going to fill this card, so I'm quite happy to just move these around in whatever direction I feel necessary. And they just look so beautiful. So you can see you get that kind of the bleeding effect going on there, which is just lovely. Every now and then you're going to want to clean your stamp because you'll have a lot of build up from the other colours, and eventually that will start going muddy if you're not careful. So just take a wet wipe, give that a quick clean every now and then. The beauty of this, because you're using oxide inks which have a pigment in them, you can lay them over each other as well, as you can see there. So that will slowly start to bleed a little more as the watercolour cardstock kind of absorbs the ink. So don't worry too much if you think that's just too clear at the moment. Now, as I say, that will gradually dry, and as it does so, the colours just seep out into the paper. But it's a really nice artsy background, and you can then go and blend some ink into the edge to dull those edges down once everything's dry. So I'm just using the blue colour ink that I used in the mix of three, and I'm just blending into the very edges to kind of give it a little bit of a vignette look. Because this is a lighter ink, a lighter application than what we were doing with the stamping, this isn't going to override the pattern, the detail that you've already built up in the background. I love that we kind of have that glow in the middle. So from the Frida Kahlo paper pack, I've taken a foiled gold ribbon strip here and a sentiment that just says "My Friend" in gold as well. I'm going to place them onto my card and mat it all onto a navy blue card base. This is going to then coordinate with the blue in the flowers, and the gold coordinates with that yellow that we added too. So there's two cards actually using the same stamp for very, very different results. For the third card, I'm going to be using the flower from this stamp and die set, again from the Frida Kahlo collection. So I'm going to use this flower here and the outline die just to make things easier. I could fussy cut this out, but if we've got the die there, we may as well use it. So this is another beautiful set with lots of imagery in there. I'm going to first of all create a background, and this is going to be quite a funky background. I'm going to use a piece of plastic here. This is just going to be for me to start smooching some ink into my background. Now this is a really easy technique. I'm going to add some brown. This is Distress Oxide and it's ground espresso, and salvaged patina, which is a beautiful teal colour. So I'm putting the two of them on, and I'm going to probably repeat this a couple of times until I've built up enough colour for what I want. So I'm going to turn this over after spritzing with some water and just spread that into the background of my card, just pushing the liquid out. It's mixing the colours a little bit, so we're getting a bit of a green in there as well. And I'd like to almost cover my card so that I don't have too much in the way of white space, but a little bit is okay. So once it looks like you've spread that, that's actually a really nice spread of ink there. I'm just going to let the watercolor cardstock that I'm working on to absorb that for a moment. So because when you lift this up, there'll be some excess ink, and that ink will kind of pool where you lift the plastic up. So the longer you can leave it on there, the better and smoother the result you're going to get. Have a piece of absorbent kitchen towel ready. I can see I've got some liquid under this edge, and just lift that up. And as you can see, the last edge is always going to leave you with a little bit of a pool of water. Now, I'm going to repeat that a couple of times. I'm going to repeat it now just with the ground espresso. So a little bit more in a smaller area and a little bit less ink. And I'm going to press this down again and again, and I'm looking for blotchiness. I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm going to keep blotching away from the edges to keep them a little bit lighter. And you can dry these layers with the heat tool if you prefer. Then I'm going to repeat this with the salvage patina as well. Again, not too much water this time because I want this colour to really stand out. Now I've got a spare sheet of cardstock. This is the same watercolour cardstock, as you can see, as the piece that I've been blending onto. This is important so that these flowers really do look as if they fit in place on the card. You want the two bases of your cardstocks to match. If you can't use exactly the same cardstock, certainly one that's the same colour will do the job. And this is why I wasn't worried about completely filling the background. I'd like some of this ivory off-white colour to show through a little bit so the flowers kind of make more sense. So working with my chosen floral, and you can use lots of different ones if you want to, or you can just stick with one. I'm going to stick with one today, and I'm going to stamp this not in black ink but in a brown ink. This is a VersaFine ink, and this one is called Vintage Sepia, or Sepia, depends how you say it. I'm going to stamp this a few times, and I'm going to use the coordinating outline die to cut each one of these out. So these flowers that I've die cut out, I've arranged on my card there, overlapping them all, and I'm going to very lightly glue those down. You can use a little bit of double-sided tape or some wet glue, and then I'm actually going to run some machine stitching through them. Now this could be hand stitching, it could be faux stitching, but either way it's going to give a really lovely textured look to what would otherwise be flat die cuts on a card. So I've just brought that closer for you so you can hopefully see that stitching. If I turn this over, you'll see I've done two lines through the flowers in a pale teal colour. Now this is very subtle, which is why I needed to bring it close to show you, but it's a really nice way of adding texture and extra effect to a card. There's a little bit kind of mixed media like. So I'm using the Frida Kahlo paper pack, and there's some gorgeous gold toppers there. So I'm using that again on this card as I have the other three. And just to really emphasize the gorgeous patina colors, I'm going to place this onto a pale teal card base. So there's my three cards using the floral stamps, but not necessarily overly feminine. So you can do this for, like I say, people who don't love their pinks and their purples, maybe gentlemen who love their flowers as well, whatever you need for your recipient. But it's a different way of looking at the florals that are inside the Frida Kahlo collection and lots of other things that you already have at home in your stash. Now if you like this video, we think you're also really going to like this one just here, and please do make sure you have subscribed to the CraftStash YouTube channel for more tips and tutorials like this one.